Last week, all three levels of government stepped up with a huge injection of infrastructure money for Ottawa, almost $500 million. Some of it is for transit, but a large portion is to widen roads and build the Stranraer Bridge to connect the suburbs of Barrhaven and Riverside South and help reduce car congestion in that area. That goes against what my next guest is preaching. Dom Nozzi is an urban design consultant. He's written a book called Road to Ruin, An Introduction to Sprawl and How to Cure It. He joins me now by telephone from his home in Richmond, Virginia, where he runs his consulting company, Walkable Streets. Good morning, Dom.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. Dom, what do you see as wrong with the way we're designing most of our neighborhoods and the roads these days?
Well, our biggest problem is that over the past several decades, we have changed our model for how we design our neighborhoods and communities and roads. The previous timeless model was to design to make people happy. Since roughly World War II, we have really shifted the model so that today we largely design to make cars happy, and there's a big conflicting set of values. There's clashing values between what cars need and what people need, and so we end up having a strong compulsion to design for cars because we're increasingly forced to travel by car. It's really difficult to travel by other means, and that means that we end up being our own worst enemy because we end up compelling our elected officials to design roads to make cars happy, which is ultimately a way to degrade our quality of life.
But cars being happy means we can move faster and also in a safer way. Isn't that part of making us happy as well?
Well, it is in a very small way. Only a very small part of our quality of life is ease of travel. A lot of people argue that what's much more important is factors such as human scale, a sense of charm, a sense of civic pride, and actually safety in a broader sense. When you hear traffic engineers mention the word safety, what they don't tell you is largely the safety they're creating is safety for high-speed, inattentive car travel. In fact, when they improve the ease of travel by car and improve, quote, car safety, they're actually making things less safe for pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit users. So actually overall safety goes down, even if there's a slight increase perhaps in car travel safety.
Can you give me an example of something where they make something safer for cars, but it affects cyclists and pedestrians in a negative way?
Well, yes. Anytime you go from, say, a 2-lane to a 4-lane or 6-lane road, or you increase the size of an intersection by adding turn lanes, you're increasing the crossing distance for pedestrians. You're increasing the speed of travel by cars, which really creates safety problems for pedestrians and bicyclists. It creates what economists call a barrier effect. Those increased facility sizes also increase average vehicle speeds. They also induce motorists to be less attentive. They spend more time on the cell phone or eating and putting on makeup while they're driving because they're able to with larger facilities.
We've just announced, as I said in the intro, a huge injection of money, though, for some road widenings and a new bridge here. What happens, though, when people are stuck in road traffic? They're asking their politicians for it to be fixed. I mean, it seems like, the bridge will help address that road congestion. What's wrong with trying to get the traffic flowing better?
Well, what we know from several studies throughout the past several decades is that each time we widen a road, or in this case a bridge, we are inevitably faced what's called the triple convergence. The triple convergence says that whenever you widen a road in a community that's not declining in size, any community stable or increasing in size, you inevitably have three things happen when you widen a road. One is that you have people shift back towards rush hour travel because now the rush hour travel is less congested. You also have people shifting towards more car travel because now more car travel is more free-flowing, and so you have people shifting from transit, let's say, to more car travel with the widening. The third thing that inevitably happens is you have people shifting back towards that route. Some people in the past were avoiding the route because it was congested, and now they shift back to the route now that it's widened. And so what we find in the studies is that over a fairly short period of time, say 4 to 5 years, that congestion returns either to the same level or to a more significant level, even though we spent millions and billions of public dollars to widen, thinking the congestion would actually be eased for the foreseeable future.
It sounds like you're saying congestion can be a good thing.
Absolutely. In fact, traffic congestion regulates itself. It's a self-regulating phenomenon, and that is that when some people face congestion, they reach a level of tolerance or intolerance, and they say, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to drive at non-rush hour times. I'm going to take a different route, or I'm going to live closer to where I have to go. The congestion does that on its own. When we widen the road, we short-circuit that process, and congestion comes back with a vengeance at our expense.
Dom Nozzi, if everything you've said so far is true and would give us a better quality of life, why do you think civil engineers and urban planners are continuing to do things the way they are in designing wider roads?
Well, I think the big issue is that, there are actually a number of big issues, but one of the big issues is that we heavily subsidize car travel. We almost beg people to travel by car. We provide huge amounts of free or underpriced parking. We provide, almost always, free-to-use roads. And the gas prices tend to be much lower than they would really be if they weren't subsidized by, say, military expenditures, overseas adventures to protect oil resources, things of that nature. All these subsidies compel us to drive more so than we would ordinarily. And so there's a large market demand, there's a large citizen demand for there to be free-flowing traffic because there is such a compulsion to do so as a result of the government subsidies.
But I'm wondering specifically civil engineers. I mean, they work in these communities. They want a better quality of life. Do you think they know what you're saying? They're just not doing it, or they don't know it yet? Yes,
and that's a great point. Civil engineers, traffic engineers tend to have quite a bit of knowledge about how to design communities in a quality way for all forms of travel. They tend to find, however, that they don't have permission to recommend that certain designs be used. They find that there's a lot of political will, a lot of elected officials urging them to ease traffic congestion because that's mostly what they hear from their citizens, their supervisors, and their elected officials. They're always hearing complaints about roads being congested, and so they are given permission to ease traffic congestion by widening roads and bridges and intersections. They're not given permission to recommend other things that they very well may know is effective in promoting safety, quality of life, better communities.
What kind of things? I mean, obviously a narrower road. What other kind of things would you suggest?
Well, there are such factors as on-street parking. There is certainly road and intersection dieting, where we remove travel lanes to slow down car traffic. Traffic calming tactics, such as speed humps, roundabouts. Everything you've said so far sounds like you've got to make the driver work more. Yes. For drivers to promote safety, they need to be obligated to drive more slowly and more attentively. That really induces higher levels of safety. A lot of what we've done in our design in the past has been to design to forgive motorists for driving too fast or too inattentively, and so we actually induce motorists to drive more unsafely and at higher speeds, and therefore less safely, ironically. How do you see the status quo changing? Because, as you said, politicians are requiring engineers to do certain things, and it's because they're hearing their telephone rings in their office, I imagine, from people angry about congestion. How do you see all of this changing? Well, there are some signs of hope. There's some signs for optimism. For example, we are increasingly finding it unaffordable to continue to do these counterproductive things like widening roads and bridges and intersections. It's getting increasingly costly to do so. And so we'll simply find that we can't afford to ruin ourselves into the foreseeable future. There will be a point where we reach financial constraints that are really so significant that we have to say, hey, let's do something else. Let's try something else. We're forced to do something else. We can also pretty much expect that there will be significant increases in gasoline prices, either through gas taxes and or through supply constraints that we inevitably will face in the future. And so we can expect those two things happening for sure. We can also expect that increased congestion will lead to a great deal of citizen discontent, that the congestion will always be ahead of the construction and the widening. The citizen discontent can be leveraged by wise, courageous leadership to move us in a different direction, to move us toward a new paradigm. So citizen discontent, as we've seen in a number of communities that face a lot of congestion, can certainly be leveraged in a very powerful, productive way.
Now, you just attended a conference on the weekend with a lot of civil engineers, traffic engineers. The theme really was about sustainable communities. Did you find a receptive audience there?
I think so. I think I sensed that the audience was supportive of what I was saying. I had some good questions and some good conversations after the presentation.
And how about your thoughts on Montreal as a walkable city, a livable city?
Montreal does some things very well. I think that their transit is working pretty well. I think that they have not gone overboard with excessive, underpriced or free surface parking, which tends to be really deadly for a downtown. Surface parking lots are what I would call gap-toothed dead zones that really hurt a downtown. Downtowns need to be healthy, need to leverage what I call agglomeration economies. They need to concentrate and cluster activities, and big car facilities like roads and bridges and intersections tend to disperse powerfully that kind of agglomeration. And so the facilities for cars really damage the health of communities. They're really toxic for downtowns in particular. Montreal has really done some things. There's some admirable things in that way, in the sense that they're now trying to, as I understand it, they're trying to put in new buildings to replace some of the surface parking they have downtown. And I think that they have also done pretty well in holding a line in certainly in not allowing highway overpasses through their downtown, but also to restrict any kind of significant lane widenings in their urban area. So they're doing some things rather well in Montreal.
Dom, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I
enjoyed it.
Take care. Dom Nozzi is the executive director of the urban design firm Walkable Streets. He's also the author of Road to Ruin, An Introduction to Sprawl and How to Cure It. For CKCU-FM, I'm Giacomo Panico in Ottawa.